This is the Ordered Life podcast and the second part of our interview with Alex Havard. If you like what you hear, check out alexhavard.com, where you can find Alex's courses, books, and other resources to help you achieve greatness by bringing out the greatness in others.
Leadership without values is just management, getting things done. But the more you have a vision, a true vision of the human being, of the person, the more you're demanding in terms of what's real leadership. And then you come to the conclusion that top leadership is, for me, my leadership, which is about achieving greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. And this has to do with virtues. That's why I studied a lot of temperaments, but I didn't do what people in psychology do. People in psychology just they study the temperaments, they explain what the temperaments are, they help people know their temperaments, and that's finished. My mission was not this. My mission was to use their material in order to help people understand what is the virtue that is going to be challenging you according to the temperament that you have. So it was an instrument that I used, but the goal was not just knowing yourself. It was, after knowing yourself, understanding what's next for you. It's about discovering your temperament in order to discover the virtue that is going to be challenging for you. So it's about your personal growth. You cannot speak to people about all the virtues and tell them you have to develop all the virtues. This is what life is about. You have to tell them, look, you have to develop this virtue. Don't think about the others. You're a melancholic, audacity. You're a choleric, humility. You're a sanguine, persistence, perseverance. You're a phlegmatic, magnanimity. Do this, and you will see that all the other virtues will come in. They will come through that door. We see the beauty of someone that has a very specific temperament, but that has been developing the challenging virtue at the highest level. These are people very balanced, very pleasant to be with. They are not animals. Animals have temperament, but they don't have character. But those guys have character, so they are pleasant. You see, they have a second reaction. You see it. They are not people of the first reaction. They are not people of the instinct. They are people of reflection, spirituality, freedom. They are people of freedom. That's it. They have the spiritual energy that makes them free. There is in a normal human being, there is a complete interaction. There is a harmony between the heart, the intellect, and the will. You cannot put in the hand of artificial intelligence the decisions you have to take about life, because there is no heart and there is no will. So there should be something in your life that make a difference between the artificial intelligence and what you're producing here on that paper. We want to see your dream, we want to see your heart, we want to see your desires, we want to see your humanity.
Welcome to the Ordered Life podcast.
Yep.
Why virtuous leadership? Like, why leadership of all things as opposed to virtuous service, as opposed to virtuous humanity? Like, what about leadership?
Well, first of all, I coined this concept of virtuous leadership some 25 years ago. The idea was leadership, but then I understood there are many definitions of leadership, because more than 50 definitions of leadership, because your definition of leadership has to do with your values. So if you don't have values, your leadership will be the bottom line. I mean, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler. It's management. It's pure management. Leadership without values is just management, getting things done. But the more you have a vision, a true vision of the human being, of the person, the more you're demanding in terms of what's real leadership. And then you come to the conclusion that top leadership is, for me, my leadership, which is about achieving greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. And this has to do with virtues. That's why I had to put this word virtuous, because too many people by leadership will not understand really what we mean. So when you say virtuous leadership, people understand what you're speaking about. But at the same time, it's not about virtue, it's about leadership. So I didn't want to virtue education, building character. This is not what I was planning to do. I was planning to help people move forward in life and be real leaders, because I consider that the problem of our world is that we have a lot of good people who practice the four cardinal virtues, who try at least to practice the 4 cardinal virtues, fundamental virtues, but they never thought about the essential virtues of leadership, the specific virtues of leadership that are magnanimity and humility, because they never heard about those virtues, and very often they don't even can pronounce the word magnanimity. I mean, 70% of Americans cannot pronounce the word magnanimity because the nanny doesn't work. So I tell them, let's say magnanimity, and it will work. But if you say magnanimity, it will not work. You will say magnanimity. So I've been teaching the general of the U.S. Army in Carlisle, the War College. And majority of those guys could not even pronounce the word. Just loved it, but unfortunately, they couldn't pronounce it. Even one guy came once to me and said, Alex, well, look, the magnetism stuff was just incredible. Yeah.
At one point when you were building up virtuous leadership, did you realize that the temperaments played a critical role in this?
Not at the beginning. At the beginning, I had a certain... I understand a little bit the importance of the biological structure of people in terms of growth, and that's why in the first edition of Virtuous Leadership, I already speak about the temperaments, but it's just 1 page. Okay? But then after 3-4 years, by teaching Virtuous Leadership and helping people grow in Virtuous Leadership, I noticed that we have to speak more about the temperaments because this is the starting point. Okay, the starting point for each person. That's why I studied a lot of temperaments, but I didn't do what people in psychology do. People in psychology just they study the temperaments, they explain what the temperaments are, they help people know their temperaments, and that's finished. My mission was not this. My mission was to use their material in order to help people understand what is the virtue that is going to be challenging you according to the temperament that you have. So my job was not to tell people, this is your temperament. I'm not a specialist in temperament. I use a lot of the temperaments to help people identify the virtue that is going to be challenging them all their lives. That's a very important thing. So what Alex did, what was that thing? I was one of the first people who really put down a science on how do you move from temperament to character. That was very important, to move from temperament to character. I'm not the first guy who spoke about temperaments, and there are people who speak about temperaments much better than I do, because they're specialists of it. My science is not to be a specialist of temperaments. My science is to help people move from temperament to character.
It's the educare, right?
Educare. But then I discovered that the way to educate, the famous educare, if people know their temperament well, then it's easy for them to move in terms of self-development. So it was an instrument that I used, but the goal was not just knowing yourself. It was, after knowing yourself, understanding what's next for you. And the majority of people who have read my book, From Temperament to Character, they are very happy with that because they have discovered the virtue that is for them, a real challenge in life, and they know what is the virtue they will have to multiply, to develop all their lives and never stop building that virtue if they want to have balance, harmony in their personal life.
What are some resources people can use to find out what their temperament is?
Well, with a friend of mine, a Russian friend of mine who's an engineer, and he has been working with me for many years, we developed a test, temperament test. Well, there are a few temperament tests online. First, we have what we call personality tests. But I'm not interested in those personality tests because personality is a mixture of temperament and character. It's what do you do in this situation? Temperament is not about that. Temperament, it's what is your first reaction in that situation so that you understand what your biological temperament is. And I think it's much more useful to know what your biological temperament is than to know what your personality is, because when you have you know what your temperament is, you understand what's next for you in terms of personal growth. Or the boss of a company may be interested in making you have the MBTI, the personality test, because he doesn't care about your growth. He cares about what you can do for him now.
What you can extract from the individual.
How can I extract from you? So you are going to do the MBTI because I want to know what I can do with you now. So it's not about your growth. It's about his money. It's very different stuff. My temperament test, it's about temperament. So it's about discovering your temperament in order to discover the virtue that is going to be challenging for you. So it's about your personal growth. So a temperament test is not a personality test. And it's much more complicated, a temperament test, because you have to extract your character. You have to forget about your second reaction in specific situations. You have to remember you have to try to understand what is my first reaction, which is a biological reaction in that situation. And this is the question I'm asked now. It's not about what I do in that situation. Maybe I will do the opposite because I have character. And I understand my first reaction doesn't fit reality. So thanks God, I am not an animal and I have a second reaction. From time to time, my second reaction is the same as the first. The spiritual reaction will be the same as the biological. But very often, my second reaction, the spiritual reaction, the direction of the character or virtue will be the opposite of the first reaction. So that's why people should be careful when they make those tests. They should understand what is this test about. Is it a personality test, which is a mixture of temperament and character? Or is it a temperament test? Or is this a character test? That's what we have been developing. If you go to the website, alexhavard.com, you will see we have a temperament test, but we also have a character test, which is about the virtues. And we have another test, which is, I call this integrated human test. It's a test about tendency that people can have towards sentimentalism, rationalism, voluntarism, which really are spiritual diseases. And many people have those diseases, especially in the modern world. You have a lot of people with insane sentimentalism, and they have to understand what that is and how to get out of that. So I help people understand that they may have a certain tendency towards one of those 8 diseases I have, or sickness I have discovered. These are spiritual sicknesses. And if they discover that they may have a certain tendency toward those diseases, I explain them how to get out of that. This is the third. We have 3 tests now on self. These are self-knowledge tests. They help you understand yourself. That's a good thing. So these are the resources people have. First, to make a test, although be aware that a test has its limitation. First, because the questions, they are human questions. Second, because you're a subjective person, so you perceive the question according to what you want, what you are. And then the logarithm, has also its own limitations. So it's good to have a test, and I think 70% of people are okay with the results that they are. But much better if you can understand your temperament even before doing the test, just by knowing my science on the temperaments, what are the specificities of each temperament, and then you understand, okay, I'm more here. This is more what I am.
For people who are trying to achieve personal growth, one thing that really stood out last time you were in Vancouver is you said it's vital that we embrace our temperaments. Why is it so important for people to embrace their temperaments when they're trying to figure out what virtues they need to develop their character?
Why is it so important?
Yeah.
For them to discover their temperament? Because it makes practical. For instance, I'm a melancholic person. And when I discovered that and I studied melancholy, I discovered that the virtue that is challenging the melancholic people, it's audacity. Well, this gave me a lot of light in terms of personal growth. I have to be audacious. I shouldn't fear. I should overcome my fear of making mistakes, my fear of uncertainties. And I understand that it's normal that I have those fears. It's normal that I have the things. It's not abnormal. It's normal. But I understand 95% of the fears that I have, they exist just in my imagination. And that's normal that they exist just in my imagination because I'm melancholic. Same thing for other type of temperaments. You understand yourself much better, and then you smile at yourself. That's very important, to understand yourself and look at yourself from outside. When you know your temperament, you take distance from yourself, which is a good thing. You understand what it means to be you and not someone else. So it's a very practical point of departure for personal growth.
I really like the call out in your work, the call out to temperaments and to know thyself well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an important attribute of knowing oneself to know where you stand, and there's a reaffirmation of like, oh yes, this represents me quite well.
Yeah.
And it gives you an understanding of where you'd like to be, and perhaps the natural obstacles that you may come along the way. But for the sake of our audience that may be hearing about temperaments for the first time, you had mentioned melancholic. Perhaps you can, for our sake and maybe even for my personal review of things, could you go over the temperaments?
Yeah, very quickly. Well, we have the choleric people. Choleric people are people who are born managers. They are born for their action-oriented. Many people are born like this. No one is born a leader because leadership is it's magnanimity and humility, it's virtue, it's character, and people are born without virtues. Okay, but people are born with a temperament. And you have a lot of people who are born with a temperament of cholerics, and the choleric people are really action-oriented, management-oriented, getting things done. So those people, little by little, they discover their challenge, and their challenge is going to be humility. Because they have a tendency to use people to achieve their goals. Because for them, the priority is to achieve the goal. It's action. They want a result. So their first reaction is to use people like you use capital. So people are human resources for them. But then their second reaction, if they grow in my science, will be humility. The reaction of humility. And the reaction of humility, it's, no, people have to be served. You're here to serve people, to empower people, to make them grow. You're not here to use them. Okay? Well, if you know that you are a melancholic like me, well, you understand audacity is going to be a challenge for you because you are not action-oriented. Biologically, you are idea-oriented. You are very contemplative, but you are not. Action is something absolutely foreign to you, biologically. So you have to develop action on the spiritual level. That's it. It's audacity. And then you transform your dreams into a mission, into action. If not, you dream and you dream and you dream and nothing happens. And humanity cannot receive anything of your dreams, and that's a bad thing. Well, then you have the sanguine people who are people-oriented. They love communication. They are born communicators. And this is a very good thing. This is their talent. Extrovert, communicative, jokes, the moments, carpe diem, the now, the joie de vivre. This is what those people are biologically, and it's a great stuff. But they have a challenge. The challenge is perseverance, because they live in the present, and they can change every 2 hours. They change their plans, they change their projects, because it's boring to get things done. They love the process, but they don't like to get things done, because to get things done, you need perseverance and you need routine. You need to understand what's routine. But as soon as routine comes in, these people collapse because they hate routine. They need amusement. And so they change and they have another project every 2 hours, but never finish the job. So if you understand that being a sanguine, you need perseverance, endurance, faithfulness, patience, all those virtues that are related to time, you will build those virtues in you, in your life, and then you will become an extraordinary human being, a real leader. Then you have phlegmatic people. The phlegmatic people, they are peace-oriented. They are dispassionate. They are very rational, science, numbers. They have feet very much on earth, down to earth. These are talents, but their challenge is magnanimity. They don't dream. Why? Because they consider the dream as foolish stuff, because the dream has nothing to do with reality. So they are not dreamers, but they have to become dreamers because a human being has to dream about himself first of all. If not, he's not a real human being. So we are not machines. And phlegmatic people have a tendency to consider himself as a machine. The status quo, the machine, the rules. And that's no good. But that's his first reaction. So he has to overcome that first reaction by a second reaction that is going to be the reaction of magnanimity, which is, no, I have to dream and I have to implement the dream. So here you see the 4 temperaments. These are 4 talents, but those 4 talents have another side, the opposite side. It's the weaknesses. And the weaknesses of the temperament is a consequence of the talents of the temperament. Exactly the same. So it's because you have those talents that you have those weaknesses. That's obvious. So each temperament, it's a talent and a weakness, which means that it's a strength and a weakness. and the weakness will show you the challenging virtue. And then all your life you will work on that challenging virtue, and you will achieve greatness, balance, harmony. That's the way for me for personal growth. You cannot speak to people about all the virtues and tell them you have to develop all the virtues. This is what life is about. You have to tell them, look, you have to develop this virtue. Don't think about the others. You're a melancholic, audacity. You're a choleric, humility. You're a sanguine, persistence, perseverance. You're a phlegmatic, magnanimity. Do this, and you will see that all the other virtues will come in. They will come through that door. You have to open a door. It's the door of one virtue, not of 10 virtues. And opening that door, the other virtues will come in, because they are stuck at the door because you don't practice that virtue. Just an example, if you're a melancholic and you practice the virtue of audacity, it's very easy for you to become magnanimous. Because you have contemplation on the biological level. Then you develop on the spiritual level audacity, which is action. Then you automatically become a magnanimous person. You understand that? Okay, so we can say this about all the virtues. A choleric person that is humble is just impressive, very impressive. We love those people because they are powerful, they have a lot of energy, but at the same time, they're servant of people, they are not dictators. They empower people, they love them. And the same thing for all the temperaments. We see the beauty of someone that has a very specific temperament, but that has been developing the challenging virtue at the highest level. These are people very balanced, very pleasant to be with. They are not animals. Animals have temperament, but they don't have character. But those guys have character, so they are pleasant. You see, they have a second reaction. You see it. They are not people of the first reaction. They are not people of the instinct. They are people of reflection, spirituality, freedom. They are people of freedom. That's it. They have the spiritual energy that make them free.
What's your response to today's push in the technology world to, through artificial intelligence, to recreate the human brain? What do you say to that?
That's a very interesting question, the artificial intelligence, because a human being, it's an intellect, a will, and a heart. Okay? And those three things, when they work together, they are just magnificent. No place for rationalism, sentimentalism, voluntarism. So no absorption. We have three spiritual faculties. And those three spiritual faculties need to work all together. The intellect shouldn't absorb the heart and the will. The will should not absorb the intellect and the heart should not absorb the intellect and the will. So, there is in a normal human being, there is a complete interaction. There is a harmony between the heart, the intellect, and the will. Artificial intelligence, it has two things. We have to consider. First, it is only intelligence, which means, keep in mind, there is no heart here, and there is no will. Second, it's artificial intelligence. So it's a computer, which means that it can do things much quicker than you do. It cannot do things you cannot do. If you live 1 million years, maybe you could do the things that he can do. But he cannot do what you cannot do. What he can do is he can do very quickly, in 1 second, something you would need millions of lives to do. So it's an extraordinary instrument to save time. But you cannot give to the artificial intelligence. You cannot put in the hand of artificial intelligence the decisions you have to take about life, because there is no heart and there is no will. It's rationalism. That will be a way of falling into pure rationalism, you know. Thanks God we have a heart and we have a will, and our heart can grasp a lot of things in reality. that the intellect does not. We can have intuition. Artificial intelligence has no intuition at all. Everything is pure. These are logarithm, and that's it. There's no intuition here. Look, you can know everything about a human being. You can have a PhD from Harvard University in psychology. And you know everything about, for instance, children, because you studied childhood. You have a PhD about childhood from Harvard. You know everything theoretical. But your daughter today is sick, and you don't see it because you're lacking the virtue of prudence. You don't see it. You don't grasp the reality, the practical reality of everyday life. You don't grasp it because you lack the virtue of prudence. So you may have a PhD, you know everything. You, intellectually speaking, you're a brilliant person, you know everything. But that very specific situation now that is asking for a decision, you cannot see it. And you're a problem. You have a problem. Because you don't understand your daughter is sick. You see, and you have people without any theoretical intelligence, any PhD. Well, in 2 seconds they got it. My daughter is sick. I see it in her eyes. It's pure intuition. The artificial intelligence cannot tell you this. It can tell you a lot of things, but it cannot do the job of a real human being, where the intellect, the will, and the heart are interacting. It's the beauty of a human person. It's a mystery in the way. It's a mystery. How the heart, the intellect, and the will interact in a normal person. It's a mystery. But it's beautiful. It's great. It's fantastic. So artificial intelligence should not be the manager of our existence. That would be dramatic. But that would be a reduction, complete reduction of humanity. It would become instruments, computers. That would be very dangerous. So I'm not saying that we should not use this. I'm saying we should use this, but we have to know we also have an intellect. We also have a heart and a will, and all those things have to be integrated in the heart and the will of each person. If not, there is no spiritual life. It's purely intellectual.
I know many people today are struggling with the integration of artificial intelligence in education, particularly in high schools with writing assignments and assignments where people need to do work. What would be your advice to parents, to teachers, to students, to help them use the virtues or to see education as more than just something you do, but as, to your point, a way of being great and achieving greatness?
Yeah. I will tell them first, to all those young people, I will say, look, guys, if you become like the artificial intelligence, you will find no job in the future, because everything that can be automatized will be automatized. So we will not need you. You will be absolutely useless. So we are going to need leaders, people that can make decisions with the help of artificial intelligence, but they will be prudent decisions. Okay, that have to do with the intellect, the mind, and the will. And we have to tell those young people, if you cannot do better than artificial intelligence, you have no job. There is no job for you. So you have to develop your spiritual capacities, your will, your heart, and also your normal intellect, because a normal intellect is an intellect, the human intellect is constantly in interaction with the will and the heart. And the artificial intelligence is not an interaction with any will and any heart. So I repeat, the artificial intelligence, it makes things very quick. It gives answers very quickly, but it doesn't make the decisions for you. So if you become incapable of making decisions because you just rely on what the artificial intelligence tells you, there is no job for you and there is no happiness for you. You just become a kind of computer or machine, and it's over. I mean, we foresaw those things a long time ago. When Peter Kirstenbaum was a great writer on leadership some 50 years ago, already spoke about that. Everything that can be automatized will be automatized. Everything. So the young people should know this and should feel, well, I have to be different than this, because if not, why would they need me? And now we see this in many jobs, in many companies. Yeah, many people, they are useless. We don't need them at all. They are going to be fired because even basic programmation can be done with programmers now, just with artificial intelligence and robotization. So this is something that this is maybe a way to explain young people, look, we expect from you something different. If not, you're useless. So there should be something in your life that make a difference between the artificial intelligence and what you're producing here on that paper. We want to see your dream. We want to see your heart. We want to see your desires. We want to see your humanity. If not, you're useless.
Thinking of your comment about young people and I guess the popularization of utilizing AI, I think people choose it because it's easy. It's comfortable.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Why do I have to think? I could just delegate it to this computer robot to just spit out the appropriate results. And I think there's a calling out of the importance of hard work, of forging, of pursuing something that is good, that is important for our human nature, that exercises the human will, the heart, us, that makes us uniquely human.
Well, and the pursuit of greatness, the pursuit of skill, it's the suffering you have to endure to get through it.
Yeah. There are so many things in human nature, like beauty, like suffering, like greatness, that is not going to come from artificial intelligence.
Do you find in your when you give talks in the business world that there's a tendency of any industry where your messages resonates more? Medicine, manufacturing, technology, or is it pretty similar across the board?
No, it has nothing to do with the job. It has to do with the personal quality of the person listening to me. It can be a soldier. It can be a mother of a family, a homekeeper. Everything the reaction to what I teach has to do with the quality of that person, not with the kind of job he or she's doing. Not at all. I've seen engineers. I'm teaching in Moscow, MIT, Skolkovo Institute in Moscow, and engineers. These people many of those are very, very responsive to virtuous leadership. Maybe because they never heard about those things. It's possible before, but they are very responsive, much more even than the business community. Mm-hmm. So, it depends on the values that those people have.
I imagine there's like an internal drive for greatness, professionally, within their families, and that would be drawn to your message, to be great at everything that they do, and the importance of being great at your professional work, and that there's meaning to that.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, AJ Sanson, and Anthony De Lazari, who are associate investment advisors for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisors only, and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.